There's a specific kind of exhaustion that doesn't show up in blood tests or therapy intake forms. It's the exhaustion of maintaining a life you've stopped feeling. Not the tiredness that comes from working too hard or sleeping too little, but something far more corrosive. The weariness of performing the role of a person who cares, when inside you've gone quiet. You wake up, and before your eyes fully open, there it is, that weight. Not sadness exactly, not even despair, just the heaviness of another day that looks identical to yesterday and the day before and the 1,000 days before that. You get up anyway, you shower, dress, respond to messages, smile when it's expected. You show up to work and do your job well, maybe even excellently. You maintain your relationships, say the right things, laugh at the appropriate moments. From the outside, you're functioning perfectly, but inside, you're a ghost, operating a body, going through motions you've memorized so well you don't need to be present for them anymore. This isn't about one bad day or a difficult season. This is about the slow realization that somewhere along the way, you stopped inhabiting your own existence. You're there, but you're not there. People talk to you and you hear them, but their words land on a surface that doesn't absorb anything. You achieve things, promotions, milestones, moments that should matter, and feel nothing. Not disappointment, not even numbness in the dramatic sense, just a flat, grey neutrality that makes you wonder if you've forgotten how to feel, or if perhaps you never really knew how in the first place. Maybe you've tried to explain this to someone. Maybe you said, "I'm just tired," because it's the closest approximation to something others might understand. But they heard physical tiredness, the kind that rest can fix. And you didn't correct them, because how do you explain that you're tired of the performance itself? Tired of waking up and putting on the mask of someone who finds meaning in things? Tired of pretending that your goals excite you, that your relationships fulfill you, that the future holds something worth the energy it takes to get there? This isn't ingratitude. You know, intellectually, that your life might look good on paper. You're not ungrateful for what you have. You're exhausted by the effort it takes to care about having it. And here's what makes this particularly cruel. You're often good at hiding it. You've become so skilled at the performance that even you sometimes forget you're performing. Until you're alone. Until the door closes and the audience leaves and you're left with the silence of your own company. And in that silence, you realize you don't know who you are anymore. You don't know what you actually want, what you actually feel, what you would choose if the choice were truly yours and not shaped by what you're supposed to want, supposed to feel, supposed to choose. This isn't laziness. This isn't weakness. This isn't a character flaw or a moral failing. This is something else entirely, a specific psychological pattern that has taken root in your mind, and it's been growing there longer than you realize. It has shaped how you see the world, how you relate to others, how you make decisions, and how you experience every single moment of your life. And the most dangerous part, you've learned to mistake this exhaustion for maturity, this numbness for wisdom, this disconnection for peace. If you find value in exploring the deeper patterns of human psychology, feel free to subscribe. These insights might help you understand what words have failed to capture. Let's explore what happens inside a mind that has grown weary of its own existence. Let's begin by understanding what this exhaustion really is, because until you can name it, You cannot change it. And what you're experiencing has a name, it has a structure, it has origins, and most importantly, it has a way out. But then, if this isn't simply depression, what is it? Because you've probably wondered that yourself. You've Googled symptoms late at night, read through diagnostic criteria, and found yourself in this strange space where some things match, but others don't. You can get out of bed. You can work. You can function. So maybe it's not depression. Maybe you're just tired. Maybe everyone feels this way and you're the only one complaining about it, but something inside you knows that's not quite right either. There's a specific quality to this exhaustion that doesn't fit the neat categories you've been offered. What you're experiencing exists in a psychological territory that often goes unnamed. It shares features with clinical depression. The flatness, the lack of pleasure, the sense of going through motions, but it operates differently. Depression often says, "I can't." It weighs you down, makes simple tasks feel impossible, pulls you under. What you're dealing with says something else entirely. It says, "I can, but why?" It's not about capability. It's about the collapse of perceived purpose. You're not incapable of doing things. You're exhausted by the performance of doing them while they feel fundamentally meaningless. Psychologists call part of this anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure from activities that should be pleasurable. But it's more than that. It's also emotional blunting, a dampening of your full emotional range. And beneath that, there's often depersonalization, this sense of being disconnected from yourself, of watching your own life from behind glass. Your brain has learned to create distance between you and your experience, and it's done this as a form of protection. When the world demands that you keep performing regardless of how you feel, the mind adapts by helping you feel less. If you can't escape the performance, you can at least numb yourself to it. Here's the critical distinction. Depression is often about the absence of energy, the collapse of function. What you're experiencing is about the presence of function alongside the absence of feeling. You go to work and perform your role flawlessly, but you feel like an actor who's been playing the same character for so long you've forgotten there was ever anyone else beneath the costume. You maintain your relationships, but there's this terrible awareness that you're going through the choreography of connection without actually feeling connected. You achieve goals that once mattered to you and discover that the achievement produces nothing. No satisfaction, no pride, no sense of forward movement. Just the hollow recognition that you did the thing you were supposed to do, and now there's another thing and another, stretching out infinitely into a future that all looks the same. The exhaustion isn't from the doing, it's from the pretending. It's from the gap between how you appear and how you are. It's from the constant low-level performance of being fine, being functional, being normal, when inside you've gone dark. And because you can still perform these functions, because you haven't collapsed in any visible way, you don't give yourself permission to acknowledge how much effort it takes. You don't let yourself recognize that maintaining a life you've stopped feeling is one of the most exhausting things a human being can do. Think about your day yesterday. Can you remember it? Probably, yes. You can recall what you did, where you went, who you spoke to, but can you remember actually feeling any of it? Or does it exist in your memory like footage from a security camera? Technically accurate, but completely devoid of the lived experience. You were there. Your body moved through space. Your mouth formed words. Your face made expressions. But were you actually present for any of it? Or were you on autopilot, that reliable mechanism that has learned to operate your life while you're somewhere else entirely, somewhere far away where nothing is demanded of you? This is what makes this pattern so insidious. You're functioning well enough that no one notices. You're suffering quietly enough that even you sometimes don't notice. Until you do. Until you're scrolling through your phone at 2 in the morning, not because you're enjoying anything you're seeing, but because the silence of your own thoughts is unbearable. Until you're saying, "I'm fine," for the 1,000th time, and hearing how automatic it sounds, how divorced from any actual assessment of how you are. Until someone asks you what you want, really want, and you realize you have no idea because you've spent so long doing what you're supposed to want that your own desires have become strangers to you. Have you noticed how you can describe your entire week in perfect detail but can't remember actually feeling any of it? How your life has become a series of tasks completed, obligations met, performances delivered, but somewhere along the way you stopped being the person experiencing it and became just the mechanism carrying it out? This raises a critical question. How does a mind arrive at this state? What transforms someone from engaged to exhausted, from present to performing? Because this didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen randomly. This pattern was built layer by layer, often beginning long before you had words for what was happening. The mind doesn't arrive at this exhaustion randomly. It's built layer by layer, often beginning long before you had words for what was happening. Somewhere in your early years, you learned something that shaped everything that came after. You learned that your worth was tied to what you produced, not who you were. You learned that love came with conditions, that approval had to be earned, that your value was measured by how well you perform the role assigned to you. Maybe you grew up in a home where everything looked fine from the outside. Your parents provided for you, gave you opportunities, made sure you had what you needed. But somewhere in all that providing, your inner world got overlooked. Not because anyone meant harm, but because the focus was always on the external. Grades, achievements, behavior, appearance. You learned quickly that talking about how you felt was met with discomfort or dismissal, that expressing needs made you a burden, that the safest way to be loved was to not need too much, to not feel too much, to not be too much. Perhaps you were the easy child, the one who didn't cause problems, who figured things out on their own, who learned to soothe themselves because asking for comfort felt like an imposition. You watched how much energy your parents put into your siblings' drama or struggles, and you made yourself small to compensate. You became self-sufficient, not because you wanted to, but because that's what the system needed from you. And every time you succeeded at managing yourself, every time you solved your own problems without bothering anyone, you got the message: this is what makes you valuable. Your independence, your lack of needs, your ability to function without requiring anything from anyone. Or maybe you were the child who became an adult too early, the one who took care of others, who managed emotions that shouldn't have been your responsibility, who learned to read the room and adjust yourself accordingly. You became skilled at sensing what others needed and providing it, often before they even asked. This made you helpful, responsible, mature beyond your years. But it also taught you that your feelings were secondary to everyone else's. That your job was to manage the emotional climate, not to have your own emotional weather. And so you learned to push your own experiences down, to handle them later, except later never came because there was always someone else who needed something. The pattern embedded itself deeper with every passing year. You got praise for your achievements, for your output, for what you could do, but who you were underneath all that doing, that person rarely got acknowledged. Your feelings, your struggles, your inner landscape, these were invisible unless they interfered with your performance. And so you learned the most damaging lesson of all, that you were loved for what you did, not for who you were. That your existence had to be justified by your usefulness. That being was not enough. You had to be constantly doing, producing, achieving, maintaining. Your brain absorbed all of this and adapted. It learned that emotional expression was risky, that needs were weaknesses, that the safest path was to disconnect from your feelings and just focus on the tasks. If you didn't let yourself want things too much, you couldn't be disappointed. If you didn't invest emotionally, you couldn't get hurt. If you stayed on the surface, performing the expected role, you could avoid the vulnerability of being fully seen and potentially rejected for who you actually were. And this strategy worked for a while. It kept you safe. It made you successful by conventional measures. It turned you into someone reliable, capable, independent. But it also hollowed you out, because a human being cannot live indefinitely on the surface of their own life. A person cannot perform themselves forever without eventually forgetting who they were before the performance began. The protection became a prison, and the prison became so familiar you stopped noticing its walls. Then there's the world you grew up into, a world that reinforced everything you'd already learned, a world that rewards productivity over presence, that celebrates busyness as virtue, that measures worth in output and achievement. A world of constant stimulation where you're never just doing one thing, never just being in one moment, always split between screens and obligations and the performance of a curated self. You learn to wear different masks for different contexts, the professional self, the social self, the family self. And somewhere in all that switching, the core self got lost. Or maybe it just got tired. Tired of being whatever everyone else needed. Tired of maintaining all these versions, tired of never getting to just exist without it being for something or someone. And then one day, you found yourself here, functioning perfectly on the outside while feeling hollow on the inside. Going through all the right motions while experiencing none of the feelings that should accompany them. You arrived at the life you were supposed to want, the stable job, the relationships, the responsibilities, and discovered that achieving it produced nothing but more exhaustion. Because these weren't your goals, they were borrowed goals, inherited goals, goals you pursued because you were supposed to, not because they actually meant something to you. The moment of realization, when it comes, is often quiet. It happens when you get the promotion you work toward and feel nothing, when you're at dinner with friends and realize you haven't been present for a single conversation. When someone asks what you want to do this weekend and you genuinely cannot answer because you've lost touch with your own preferences. When you look at your life and think, I did everything right, so why does it feel so wrong? Understanding where this comes from is crucial, but there's something even more important. Understanding what it does to you. Not just emotionally, but in how your brain actually functions. Because this exhaustion isn't just in your mind. It's in your nervous system, your neural pathways, the very structure of how you process the world. And that's what we need to explore next. Here's what most people don't realize. This exhaustion isn't just emotional. It's neurological. Your brain has learned to protect you by keeping you numb. What started as a coping mechanism, a way to survive an environment that didn't make space for your full emotional reality, has become your default operating system. And now your brain is running programs designed to keep you at a distance from your own life, believing it's keeping you safe when it's actually keeping you trapped. The part of your brain called the amygdala, which processes emotions and threat responses, has learned something dangerous. It has learned that feeling deeply is a risk. Every time you expressed a need as a child and were met with dismissal, every time you showed vulnerability and it wasn't received safely, every time your emotions created discomfort in others, and you absorbed that discomfort as your responsibility, your amygdala logged those experiences as threats. Not physical threats, but threats to your belonging, your acceptance, your place in the world. And so it adapted. It began dampening your emotional responses before they could fully form, cutting them off at the source to prevent the danger of being too much, needing too much, feeling too much. This is why you can go through entire days feeling almost nothing. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it learned to do: survive by feeling less. The emotional blunting you experience isn't a malfunction. It's a feature installed by years of conditioning. Your nervous system has been in a state of chronic stress for so long that it has recalibrated. What would alarm someone else? This flatness, this absence of joy, or excitement, or even sadness, registers to your system as normal, safe even. Because the alternative, allowing yourself to feel fully, carries the unconscious weight of every time feeling got you hurt, rejected, or abandoned. There's another mechanism at play here, something researchers call anticipatory anhedonia. Your brain has started predicting that nothing will feel good, so it stops generating the motivation to even try. Think about the last time someone suggested an activity or outing. Did you feel that immediate heaviness, that knowledge that you won't enjoy it even before it happens? That's your brain running predictions based on past data. It looks at your history of experiences that produced no pleasure, no satisfaction, no genuine engagement, and it concludes, why bother? Why generate excitement or anticipation when the outcome is always the same emptiness? And so it conserves energy by not producing those feelings at all. You're not lazy or pessimistic. Your brain is being efficient with resources, protecting you from the disappointment of expecting something and feeling nothing. This creates a terrible cycle. Because you're not engaging fully with experiences, they don't produce meaningful feelings. And because they don't produce meaningful feelings, your brain's prediction that nothing matters gets reinforced. You go through the motions, feel nothing, and your nervous system nods and says, "See? I was right to keep you numb." The pattern strengthens with every repetition until you can't remember what it felt like to anticipate something with genuine excitement, to experience something with full presence, to feel the natural emotional responses that make life feel lived rather than endured. Then there's the autopilot problem. You've developed such efficient routines and habits that you can move through entire days without conscious awareness. You drive to work, and arrive with no memory of the journey. You have conversations and can't recall what was said 5 minutes later. You eat meals without tasting them, watch shows without absorbing them, go to bed without remembering anything specific about the day that just passed. This isn't just distraction, it's dissociation as a daily operating mode. Your consciousness has learned to step back, to observe from a distance rather than inhabit the moment, because inhabiting the moment means feeling it, and feeling has been categorized as dangerous. Your brain has essentially created a buffer between you and your experience. It's like living with a slight delay, where everything that happens to you passes through a filter that removes the emotional charge before it reaches your awareness. This buffer was meant to protect you, but now it's preventing you from accessing the full spectrum of human experience. You can't feel the depths of pain, true, but you also can't feel the heights of joy. You can't feel crushing disappointment, but you also can't feel genuine hope. Everything exists in this narrow band of grey neutrality, and your brain insists this is safer than the alternative. There's something even more insidious happening beneath all of this. Your capacity to generate meaning has gone offline. The part of you that used to determine what mattered, what was worth caring about, what was worth your energy and attention, that system has collapsed under the weight of too many borrowed goals and imposed values. When you try to identify what's important to you, you come up empty. Not because nothing matters, but because the mechanism that creates the sense of mattering has been overridden so many times by external shoulds that it's stopped functioning altogether. Every task feels equally meaningless because the hierarchy of personal values that would distinguish between them has been flattened into nothing. This is why positive thinking doesn't work, why people telling you to just be grateful or focus on the good feels so hollow. The problem isn't your perspective, it's that the meaning generation system itself has gone dark. You can intellectually understand that things should matter. You can logically recognize that your life contains elements worth appreciating, but that knowledge can't reach the emotional center that would transform recognition into felt experience. The bridge is out. The connection is severed. And your brain, thinking it's protecting you, keeps it that way. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it learned to do: survive by feeling less. But here's where this becomes truly costly. Because while your brain thinks it's protecting you, it's actually building a prison. And that prison has consequences you may not have fully recognized. Let's talk about what this exhaustion costs you. Not in obvious ways, but in the subtle erosion of things you may not realize you've lost. Because this pattern doesn't just affect how you feel inside. It shapes everything around you, your connections, your potential, your very sense of self. And the cost accumulates so gradually that you don't notice until you look back and realize how much distance has grown between you and the life you're living. Start with your relationships. The people closest to you have probably felt something shift, even if they can't name it. They reach for you and find that you're not quite there. You're physically present, responding appropriately, but there's a quality of absence they can sense. It's in the way your eyes glaze over slightly when they're talking about something that matters to them. It's in how your responses are just a beat too slow, as if you're translating from a foreign language before you can reply. It's in the feeling they get that they're talking to a very convincing representation of you, but not quite you. People stop sharing the deeper parts of themselves with you because somewhere along the way they sense that you're not really receiving it, not because you don't care, but because you're not fully present to care. They tell you about their struggles and watch your face make the right expressions, hear you say the right words, but feel the emptiness behind it. And slowly, without either of you acknowledging it, your relationships become shallower. Conversations stay on the surface. Interactions become transactional. The intimacy drains out, replaced by a kind of cordial distance that everyone pretends is normal. Think about your closest friend or partner. When was the last time you let them see you completely? Not the managed version, not the performance of being okay, but the truth of what's happening inside. You've probably gotten so good at automatic reassurance that when they ask if you're all right, "I'm fine," comes out before you've even checked. And with those two words, you close the door to any deeper connection. You end the conversation before it can begin. And they feel it, that subtle rejection, that sense that you're keeping them at arm's length while smiling and nodding and pretending everything's normal. The loneliness of this is devastating. You can be surrounded by people and feel completely alone because none of them know you. They know the role you play, the mask you wear, the version you present, but you, the person underneath all that performance, that person is invisible, even to yourself. You've created relationships based on your function rather than your being, and now you're trapped in them, going through the motions of connection while starving for something real. But it's not just your relationships that suffer, it's your potential, your possibilities, your future. How many dreams have you let die because you couldn't summon the energy to care about them? How many opportunities have you watched pass by because you couldn't feel excited about anything? There were probably moments when something sparked your interest, when you felt a flicker of genuine curiosity or desire, but you dismissed it. You told yourself it wasn't practical, wasn't realistic, wasn't worth the risk. But the real reason was simpler and more painful. You couldn't access the hope required to pursue it. Hope requires emotional investment, and emotional investment feels too expensive when you're already exhausted from just maintaining the basics. You've learned to call this wisdom. "I'm just being realistic," you tell yourself. "I'm not a dreamer anymore. I've matured." But what you're calling maturity is actually resignation. What you're calling realism is actually the inability to imagine that anything could feel different than it does now. You're not choosing a smaller life because you've gained perspective. You're choosing it because living bigger requires caring, and caring requires feeling, and feeling is exactly what your system has learned to avoid. Think about the last time someone offered you something genuinely good, a new opportunity, an adventure, a chance to try something different. Did you feel that immediate contraction, that reflexive no before you'd even considered it? That's not discernment. That's your exhausted system protecting itself from the possibility of engagement. Because engagement means vulnerability, and vulnerability means potentially feeling something, and feeling something has been reclassified as a threat. The creative parts of you have gone dormant. The aspects of yourself that once imagined possibilities, that played with ideas, that felt excited about building or creating or exploring. These have been shut down to conserve energy. And you might not even miss them because you can't remember what they felt like. You can't mourn the loss of something you've forgotten you had. But perhaps the deepest cost is what's happening to your sense of self. You've spent so long performing a version of yourself, adapting to what's expected, molding yourself to fit each situation, that you've lost track of who you actually are beneath all that adaptation. When someone asks you what you want, genuinely want, you draw a blank. Not because you're indecisive, but because you've stopped listening to yourself. You've trained yourself to override your own preferences, to dismiss your own inclinations, to defer to what seems appropriate or expected or safe. You make decisions that build a life you don't recognize. You say yes when you mean no, because saying no would require accessing your actual feelings about something, and those feelings are buried too deep. You accumulate commitments and obligations and relationships and possessions that don't reflect who you are, but rather who you think you should be. And then one day you look around at this life you've constructed and realize it fits someone else entirely. You've been building towards someone else's vision of success, someone else's definition of happiness, someone else's blueprint for how a life should look. This is the quiet emergency that no one sees. You're not falling apart in any visible way. You're not collapsing or crying or calling for help. You're just slowly disappearing, fading out of your own existence while maintaining the appearance of fine. And the most dangerous part? It doesn't hurt enough to force a change. The numbness that's causing the problem is also preventing you from feeling the full weight of what you're losing. So what do? How do you wake up a mind that has learned to sleep through its own existence? How do you reconnect with feelings you've spent years learning to suppress? The answer isn't simple, but it starts with understanding something crucial about how change actually happens. Breaking this pattern doesn't happen through force. It happens through awareness, attention, and the slow rebuilding of your capacity to feel. You cannot think your way out of this. You cannot logic yourself back to presence. What got you here was a gradual disconnection, and what will bring you back is an equally gradual reconnection, not to some idealized version of yourself, but to the truth of what you're actually experiencing right now. The first step isn't fixing, it's seeing. You have to start noticing when you're performing versus when you're actually present. This sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things you'll do because the performance has become so automatic that you don't even register when it's happening. But awareness has to come first. You can't change what you don't see. Start checking in with yourself throughout the day, not to judge, not to fix, just to notice. Am I here right now? Am I actually experiencing this moment, or am I somewhere else while my body goes through the motions? When you agreed to those plans, did you actually want to go? Or did you say yes automatically? That heaviness you felt right after agreeing, that's information. That dread that appeared the moment you committed, your body is telling you something your mind has learned to override. This practice of honest self-observation is radical because you've spent so long pretending you're fine that checking in with how you actually are feels almost dangerous. But you have to start distinguishing between I should want this and I actually want this. These are completely different experiences, but you've been treating them as the same for so long that you can't tell them apart anymore. Your system needs to relearn that the difference matters, that your actual preferences have value, that your real feelings deserve acknowledgement even when they're inconvenient. Then comes something even more uncomfortable: reclaiming small truths. You need to start making decisions based on what you actually feel, not what you think you should feel. And this starts small, because your system can't handle big authenticity when it's been surviving on performance. Start with micro decisions that require no justification to anyone. What do you actually want for lunch? Not what seems healthy or appropriate or what you usually get, but what appeals to you in this moment. It sounds trivial, but these small acts of honoring your own preferences start rebuilding the neural pathways between feeling and action. Your brain begins to relearn that your feelings have consequences worth having, that listening to yourself produces outcomes that matter. Give yourself permission to practice one authentic no per day. Not a dramatic rejection, just a small decline of something you don't actually want to do. Notice how uncomfortable this feels. Notice the guilt that rises up. The voice that says you're being difficult or selfish or unkind. That voice is the old system trying to pull you back into performance mode. But you have to let yourself feel the discomfort of disappointing others, of not being endlessly accommodating, of taking up space with your actual preferences. This is exposure therapy for emotional honesty. As you do this, you'll need to renegotiate your relationships. And this is where it gets painful, because you cannot heal in the same environment that created the wound. Some of your relationships were built on your depletion, on your endless flexibility, on your willingness to be whatever others needed. When you start showing up authentically, some people will resist. They'll ask what's wrong, why you're being different, why you can't just be the way you used to be. And you'll have to recognize that these relationships were never about you. They were about your function. Setting boundaries isn't rejection. It's self-definition. It's saying, this is where I end and you begin. And some people won't like that because your lack of boundaries was convenient for them. Pay attention to who supports your being versus your performing. Who gets uncomfortable when you express real feelings? Who changes the subject when you're honest about your struggles? Who needs you to stay small so they can feel big? These are data points. Some connections will fall away in this process, and that's not failure. That's clarity. You're making space for relationships that can hold your full presence, not just your useful parts. And finally, understand this: you cannot think your way to meaning. You have to live your way there. Meaning doesn't come from figuring out the right philosophy or finding the perfect purpose. It emerges from aligned action, from doing things that require no convincing, from following curiosity without needing to justify it. Stop asking what should matter to me and start asking what requires no convincing. What do you find yourself drawn to when no one's watching? What captures your attention without effort? These small moments of genuine interest are threads. Follow them, not because they'll lead somewhere impressive, but because they're yours. This transformation isn't fast, and it's not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you were before you learned to disappear, before the performance, before the exhaustion, before you traded presence for safety. If you recognize yourself in this description, understand you're not broken. You're exhausted from carrying a version of yourself that was never truly yours. The tiredness you feel isn't from living. It's from performing. It's from maintaining the gap between who you appear to be and who you actually are. It's from spending every day as a translator between your real self and the acceptable self, until you can't remember which one is which anymore. What you've been experiencing has a history. It didn't start with you waking up one day and deciding to feel nothing. It began in small moments of learning that your feelings weren't safe, that your needs were burdens, that your worth was conditional on your usefulness. It built itself quietly, layer by layer, until the exhaustion became your baseline, and you forgot there was ever anything else. But understanding where it came from matters, because it removes the weight of believing this is who you fundamentally are. This is what you learned, and what has been learned can be unlearned. The pattern we've explored today, this emotional numbness, this performance of living, this exhaustion of existing, it's not permanent. It's maintained by mechanisms that once protected you, but now imprison you. Your brain learned to keep you at a distance from your feelings because closeness felt dangerous. Your nervous system adapted to chronic performance by dampening your emotional range. Your sense of meaning collapsed under the weight of borrowed goals and imposed values. But these are patterns, and patterns can be interrupted. They can be changed. Not overnight, not easily, but genuinely. Change begins with the simple act of noticing. Not fixing, not forcing, not trying to think your way into feeling differently, just noticing. Where am I performing right now? Where am I actually present? What am I feeling beneath the automatic, I'm fine? These questions, asked with genuine curiosity rather than judgment, begin to create space between the pattern and your awareness of the pattern. And in that space, choice becomes possible. You don't have to overhaul your entire life tomorrow. You don't have to make dramatic declarations or burn everything down. You just have to start honoring small truths. One authentic preference. One honest no. One moment of allowing yourself to feel what you actually feel instead of what you think you should feel. These micro acts of self-recognition accumulate. They rebuild the connection between your inner experience and your outer expression. They remind your nervous system that it's safe to feel. That being seen doesn't always lead to rejection. That authenticity doesn't always result in abandonment. The path isn't linear. Some days you'll feel everything with overwhelming intensity. Some days you'll feel nothing at all. Both are part of the process. Your system is recalibrating, learning to trust that the full spectrum of emotion is survivable. Be patient with yourself. You've spent years, maybe decades, learning to disconnect. Reconnection takes time. It takes repetition. It takes falling back into old patterns and then choosing differently the next time. Progress isn't perfection. It's the growing space between stimulus and automatic response. It's the increasing moments when you catch yourself performing and choose presence instead. Take a moment after this video to simply notice, where am I performing? Where am I actually present? Not to judge yourself, not to fix anything, just to see. What would it mean to choose one authentic action today? One decision based on what you actually feel rather than what you think you should feel. You don't need to know where it leads, you just need to take the step and extend some compassion to the part of you that learned to go numb. It was trying to help. It was trying to keep you safe in an environment that didn't make space for your full humanity. You survived by learning to disappear, and that took tremendous strength. You did what you had to do, but you don't have to keep doing it. You're allowed to come back now. You're allowed to exist as more than a function, more than a performance, more than the accumulated expectations of everyone who needed you to be something other than yourself. The exhaustion of existing isn't a life sentence. It's a signal. It's your system telling you that something fundamental needs to change. Not your circumstances necessarily, though sometimes that's part of it. but primarily your relationship to yourself, your willingness to be seen, your capacity to honor your own experience, your permission to exist as you are rather than as you should be. You don't have to stay tired, you just have to start noticing. You just have to begin the slow work of reconnection. One honest moment at a time, one authentic choice at a time, one truth at a time. The person you were before you learned to perform is still there, waiting beneath all the layers of protection and adaptation. Not waiting to be rescued or fixed or made perfect. Just waiting to be acknowledged, to be felt, to be allowed to exist. If you found value in this exploration of psychology, feel free to subscribe for more content that helps you understand the deeper patterns shaping your experience. What psychological patterns would you like us to explore next? Your suggestions help guide future videos. If this resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might need these words. The exhaustion of existing isn't permanent. It's a pattern, and patterns can be changed. You don't have to keep performing, you don't have to keep disappearing, you just have to begin the quiet work of coming back. What should we explore next in the psychology of the human mind? Drop your ideas below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to stay updated.